Okay, so a new symptom, cold. When you put a car in drive, it's now surging. So you can hear it's doing it now. It's when it goes, you can hear a solenoid click. I don't know if it's a cold start or not, but if it does it again, wait and see. You hear a click and then it'll hunt really bad, like very audible. Boom, boom. There. So yeah, so solenoid clicks in the engine bay and then it hunts for about 5 seconds and then stops. Hey guys, on today's episode of Thailand Retro Mods, we're dyno tuning the Moose Wagon. So time for a tune and time to see if we can unlock some of the power. Now, this episode we're going to walk you through the diagnostic process that we undertook. And the reason why we're going the tune already, because we are kind of jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit. There's a good reason why we've done that. We've checked out a few other things. We've got a tune from Hilton in the USA, so we're going to go over that tune and the process. The first thing we're doing is taking it to the dyno cell to get a baseline tune, to see what's currently, not tune, but baseline run, to see what's currently putting down, before we upload the tune and see how much more mooses we can unlock out of this thing. Cool. Okay, so at this stage I've bought the car. We've done a lot of stuff to it, like we've changed the timing belt, we've changed the coils, we've changed the plugs, we've changed the plug connectors, we've even changed the MAF, and we've also changed the oil and everything. We're getting it ready, but the problem is the car just does not behave right. It's got some pretty significant symptoms. It feels very underpowered. The gearbox just isn't happy. It doesn't want to change gears. I thought it was the oil, but it's not the oil. When it's under wide open throttle, it gets up to red line. It goes up, 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 before it changes gears. And it's just behaving like a general dog. The symptoms that we've got in the car that it's showing us is long-term fuel trim. Which is typical of a vacuum or air leak behind the MAF, is showing us a MAF error itself, and it's also showing us the ECU error, which means that it's had a tune before, so that's interesting too. And so we picked the video back up at the workshop, and now you get to see the troubleshooting process. And Noom is such a legend, he's actually gone and downloaded the Vita software in English for me so that I can read the codes as well. Pud pasa English, gang mak? So yeah, so a cop and cub, because we were getting all the codes up, but there was a lot of 2-minute noodles on the screen, so unfortunately my spoken Thai is not even as bad as my reading and writing of Thai, so thank God he's got it in English, so we're going to see what it is. The problems presenting at the moment could be just a bad board, so the body control module talking to the ECU. The thing we've found is it seems to be an intermittent fault, which is kind of positive because it's telling me that could mean that it's a connector or something on the board that can be replaced and fixed, so that could be good. The ultimate bad news would be that there's a disconnect between the ECU for the car, so the ECU in the car here. So we've got the V70r engine, which is what we want. The ECU, which obviously runs that. We've got the original ECU for the shitty automatic gearbox, which could be causing problems. And then it runs into the BCU, which is under the dashboard, which then goes out and controls all the other stuff like the ABS and all that. The worst case scenario for this car is that it's going to be like an ABS type fault, where something about this engine, that computer, the gearbox, that and this just don't talk to each other and are never gonna talk to each other without special VIN numbers or whatever from Volvo. If that's the case, then we're up the creek without a paddle. So fingers crossed at this moment that it all comes. So the cool thing about the Vita software is you can go in and select parameters you want: coolant temperature, boost pressure, whatever you need, airflow mass correction, mass airflow we definitely want. We also want to throw in there the long-term fuel trim, lower part, long-term fuel trim part load. Well, that's one of the main ones we want. I was also worrying about the fuel pressure, because it could be the fuel pressure sensor as well, and this will give us all the immediate readings. Then you can actually go to open graphic display. You can pick 5 of the parameters, In this case, we're going to want to select the mass airflow, the long-term fuel trims are the main things we want because those are what were coming up with the errors, and the oxygen sensor. We can only pick 5, so we'll pick the front, the rear, and that. So start there, and then as you see there, it starts to give you the live readings. So the oxygen sensor is one of the ones that we were worrying about. Fuel trim seems pretty good now. I've noticed that the long-term fuel trim has gone back to -7.5, which is the maximum down, which is what we don't want to see. So there could still be some fuel trimming issues going on there. A little bit of slack cable. What you can do is the engine arrest. That'll tell you the parameters there, which is the oxygen sensors, the fuel trim lower, so none of the fuel trims change. The mass airflow obviously spiked up, as well as the oxygen sensors there, which is all pretty much, except for the oxygen sensor, which we've got to keep an eye on. I'm not quite sure whether that's normal under the conditions or not. So those are things just to keep an eye on, which you can send this to someone who knows what they're talking about to review it. Now, the last departing gift that the workshop in Bangkok left me with was going, something wrong with your gearbox, and it's probably going to be very expensive to fix. So Kun Noom, this is his wheelhouse for sure. He's got all the setup and everything for it. Definitely knows what he's doing. So he's going to have a look at the capacitors for me and see if he can get them fixed, because this could also be another one of the problems. I noticed under full load, wide open throttle, it was not wanting to change gear either. I'm sure this gearbox isn't long for the world, but let's see if we can give it a decent send-off at least. So there are a couple modules here which we can get the part numbers from and order. Thailand being a very hot and humid country, these might have just gotten hot inside the engine bay and cooked, so we're going to have a crack at seeing if we can order these and replace them. So we've found the part numbers for the 2 transistors there, and we're going to order some of them on eBay and then chuck them out and chuck them in and see if we'll fix the problem. Now, just got back from the mechanics and my car's making this funny squeak. Can anyone else hear that? So I found my mystery squeak in the car. That'll do it every time. So the next step for the car would have been to get some new resistors for the TCU, the transmission control unit, because Noom thought that a lot of the gearbox problems were actually coming from a bung transistor on there. And then it kept on coming back to me, the fact that the computer was showing up with an error that the software had been edited. So that to me told me that the computer had already had a tune. And I sort of start to think to myself more and more, you know, could it actually be the tune that was causing all the problems? Could it have been the tune that's causing all the fuel trim problems? Could it be the tune that's causing all the problems with the AFM, with the gearbox and everything? So after having a chat with Hilton, who is a famous tuner in America, he came back to me saying, yep, he feels that there could be a lot of benefit from a tune, and so bought a tune from him, and this is what's happened next, guys, so enjoy.
Screen over here just going crazy with numbers as the fuel delivery happens, acceleration happens.
So we're getting the car dyno tuned at Chat Up. So how did I find this place? Literally got onto Google, typed in dyno, car dyno, looked at a few different other locations and looked at the photos. So looked for a location until I find a photo of an actual dyno cell, and lo and behold, this place had it. It's probably about 10 minutes from our house. We can have an hour on the dyno, and an hour on the dyno is going to cost us 2,500 baht, which is this much money. So this is the main shop, and the dyno cell is just over in the building next door. They've got some cool stuff here, so let's have a look at what they've got. So one of the things that's capturing our attention is this random Honda. If you know what this is, playing at home, let us know. So it's a two-door Honda job here with a big wide body kit, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, we'll have a bit of that. And also another one which you might like is the Kombi. So Thailand loves Kombi vans. I think most of the world loves Kombi vans, so that's pretty cool. So the things you find in Thailand, guys. So this is the place we're going. That China quality, love it. And also you'll notice that most of the utes in Thailand, them Kirkis, mate. Gotta have the Kirkis. It's all about the lightweight.
The Central.
Need to buy Central, mate?
Yes.
Arden's first dyno run. How much moose power is it going to make, buddy?
You should totally like figure out a way to put him in the dyno. Like when the dyno's running.
How many moose powers at the front hooves? I'm guessing 235. Hey guys, so the process we're going to go through today is should be pretty simple. You always say that, but we're going to do a baseline pull just to see what's going on with the car at the moment, and to be honest, just for our pure interest, just to see how much power it's making. Then what we do is we upload the tune via software that Hilton have provided that comes with the tune. It seems pretty much locked off, so it's literally just you log in, you get your key for your tune, they let you have that one tune, and then the cool thing about it is you don't need a hard uploader, so you don't need prongs attached to the ECU that's going to be flashing it, and then you run the risk of bad connections frying your ECUs or anything. It's literally just uploaded via the DICE controller, which is typically the inbound data stream for when you're measuring the engine. We can actually soft upload the tune through that, and then it should be done. Let the car idle for a bit, send the idle data off to Hilton, and then we'll take it for a drive, see how it's behaving, and then chuck it back on the rollers and see how many more moose powers we've gotten at the front hooves. Hopefully we've got So we're maxing out at 6,000 RPM as well, so we'll see what we can get. Currently 162 to 165 front wheel horsepower. Okay, so we've got the DICE unit hooked up in the car, and the first thing we want to do is read the existing tune, so that takes a little while there. 7% complete, so when that's done we should be good to go. Okay, so once you've hit 100%, you can then select your flash from the unit. So there's the original file up the top. This is our stage 3 tune, and flash. Okay, and then we're beginning the flash. So this should be what we're looking for. Load this up and Bob's your uncle, Ron's your relation, you've unloaded all the moose powers. So 216. Okay, so I picked up an extra 1,000 RPM and plenty of horsepower. So she's now at 217 from a low of 259, so 159, sorry. So decent uptake. It's a good base place to start, and hopefully the gearbox is changing well as well, and we've cleared off a lot of the gremlins out of it. So definitely happy with that as a base, and we can start modifying from here. What do we got? Give us them mooses. Release the meese. 220. So yep, max of 217, sorry. So 159 to 217. Yep, decent. Okay guys, so this is the official figures. So when we got the car in there, it was making 159.1 horsepower, but as you can see here, it was dropping right off, and the rev limiter was set at say 6100, and you can see from the graph here that it's dropping off quite a bit all down there. It's just dying. Now you can see, this is tune 3 where we're sitting now. It's when the VVT kicks in at about 6400 RPM, big spike, so it's like peaking out at 6500 RPM, making a solid 220. Now another thing I've got to say as well is the dyno was completely untuned, so it didn't have all the ramping and everything set up on the dyno. So this graph is really just to get an idea of A and B. It's an A/B test. It's not really showing the dyno queen figures you might get out of tuned dynos, but the fact that we haven't even started leaning on this car now, this is just where we're starting. Couldn't be happier, and Kundum, you happy with that?
Yes.
Yep, so Kundum's happy. He was a bit surprised about this as well. If you just look at all this area here, that's a massive, massive improvement, so very, very happy. So we're just plugging it back into the Volvo Vita system, and as you can see, a few of these errors are still showing up. The long-term fuel trim, the MAF, and a few of those. It's come up with some wheel sensors as well, which we'll have a look at. These are all the things that Hilton said they'll adjust. So we've done a data log with his software, which will then send that data log off to him, and then he can adjust and remap and update the tune as we go along and get all the moose powers out of this thing. Just another little helpful hint. If you're looking for faults and wondering why you're not getting all the current data, or the faults that are showing on your computer aren't showing up here, you need to be in delivery mode, not in initial state. So that's the mode you need to be in, and that's how you get to it. So always make sure you go to delivery, not initial state, guys. Okay guys, so I've just taken the car for its first drive, and I must say it is a different vehicle altogether. So when we show you the dyno graph, you'll see that it picked up an extra 1500 RPM, which goes to show that what my initial thoughts were being proven to be correct, which is that this car has never had the proper tune built up. So the car has an ECU, it has a TCU, and then it's got the BCM, the body control module. So what was going on was that all the different parts of the car just weren't talking to each other. So you've got a tune which needs to be built up off the 2-litre tune. So that's why all the MAF sensor readings and everything were all out of whack, because the car didn't really know what it was. Now it knows what it is, and yep, happy days. Couldn't be better. So yeah, great result, guys. The tune, the price of the tune is something I wanted to talk about as well. So I got that from Hilton because it's all factory. So I ordered the Stage 1, which is for factory tuned engines. And after purchasing the Stage 1 for $350, he politely and kindly informed me that Stage 1 wouldn't work for this car. And the reason he gave me was that, for the aforementioned reasons, that it's had an engine swap from the 2-litre to the 2.5. So you really need to build it up off that. And if you just throw a 2.5 tune in this car, then you're going to get a lot of problems like gearbox problems and MAF sensor problems and O2 problems, which is everything which I was seeing. So when he told me that those are the problems that might arise, that immediately rang true. So like, yep. There was the concern that maybe he's fleecing me. This is someone that I've never met from across the country in America, but no one had ever said anything bad about the guy. He had a stellar online reputation. Everyone raved about him, and he was willing to help me before I'd even given him money, which is a major thing for me. If people are passionate about what they do and they enjoy it and they've still got a bit of spark in them, then I'm more inclined to want to be a customer of theirs. And yeah, Hilton Tuning, couldn't say a bad thing so far. we've obviously got to see what he's going to be like on the revisions and any follow-up. Hopefully he gives me the $800 for the follow-up as well. You know, obviously down the track I'm still going to put an exhaust and piping and intercooler on this thing just to get it breathing a bit better, and when that tune's done, I think that's when we'll really see the moose loose. That should be a really good system where we start to see some extra power once we unlock all that. So cool guys, that's today's video. So really big milestone for the car. Got it running fine, and to be honest with you, I'm probably going to leave it the way it is for a little bit longer. Enjoy it, drive it around. Oh yeah, a bit of torque steer there. Yeah, smile on my face, smile on the dial. It's about smiles per hour, not miles per hour, guys. And this car is ticking the boxes. Yeah, happy days. So my son's going to be able to get to school on time every day, and Daddy will be able to enjoy the family hauler while the family's on the car. So yeah, cool guys. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time on Thailand Retro Mods.